Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. May God forgive us all for our shortcomings. May He bless us and guide us on the straight path and show us reality. God is without form. He is without substance that is elemental in the way we know substance. He is everywhere and encompasses everything. He maintains everything that there is, and He created everything that there is. He existed prior to creation as a mystery, and then He came to know Himself and made all of creation also as a mystery. We are given through the scriptures and through ketubs some inkling of what God is. And God is this monumental power. He is a power that does not have within it any of the negative satanic aspects. He is purity and effulgence and grace. He is kindness and love and mercy and compassion. He treats all equally. He is without enemies. And we need to come to know Him because in truth, He is reality. And we need to come to know reality. And the only way we can come to know reality is to surrender to Him. But to surrender to Him, we have to have some concept of what it is that we're trying to surrender to. We have to have some concept of what it is we're trying to get to know. We should have a concept of what the ultimate truth is. And to assist us in coming to know this, we are given the names of God, and we are shown many of His gracious qualities. None of these have form. Yet, Allah has told us that man has been created in the image of Allah. But Allah has no image because He has no form. So what is it that we are created as? Because we have form. So we are a being with two bodies. We are a being with a body of form and a being with a body that has no form. Part of us has a shadow, and part of us does not have a shadow. Everything with form has a shadow. God has no shadow, and the truth of who we are, the non-form, the non-manifest, the non-elemental portion of ourselves has no shadow. And the non-elemental portion of ourselves, our second body, is capable of coming to understand the truth that is God. The process for this is surrender. And what in fact does surrender mean? Man surrenders. He surrenders himself. He surrenders his mind. He surrenders his desires. He surrenders his physical visions. He surrenders his body. But what is it that we're surrendering to, and how do we come to truly surrender? Can we truly surrender? What are the prerequisites for actual surrender? Within us, within this physical manifestation, we have a mind and we have desire. This mind and desire, also known as the monkey mind and the dog of desire, pull us and push us through this world. Now, Allah is beyond this world. This world is his creation, but he is not of this creation. We are of this creation. But the truth of us is also beyond this creation. The reality of us is beyond this creation. And somehow we have to, within ourselves, understand the process for leaving this world, this dunya, and to go beyond creation, to leave the world and enter into truth and reality. The world, in fact, is a temporary manifestation. Our body is a temporary manifestation. Everything we see, hear, touch, everything that our senses encounter are temporary manifestations that all disappear. So how do we get to that place that is beyond the temporary? How do we interact with that place that is eternal? The mind and desire function within the material world. The desire manifests images within us, emotions within us, desires within us as to things that we want. The mind and the intellect conjure up methods to accomplish that which the desire puts in front of us as necessary for our lives. The mind makes these desires monumental in nature. Our desires become the most important things in our lives, and we spend an enormous amount of our energy and our time and our effort trying to manifest these desires into reality. Unfortunately, these desires cannot bring us contentment or peace, because one of the things that happens to us, one of the things that goes on within us, one of the things that is common to all of us is every time you think you fulfill a desire, another one takes its place. There's no end to desire. There's no end to attempting to fulfill desire. And there's no end to the needs that desire creates within us. And so man becomes distraught. Man begins to pray to God in a very specific way. He says, God, give me this. God, give me that. God, I need this. Before I can move forward onto whatever next step I'm going to take, you have to supply this for me. As long as our prayer method is for things within this manifest world, within this world of the elements, we never make any real progress in getting to know the truth of who we are or the truth of who God is. It's a fundamental lack in our faith. If you think that you have to tell God what you need and that you have to beg from him that he give you what you need, you lack the faith that he already knows what you need and gives you what you need and supplies what you need. So there is a lack of faith that brings about this kind of prayer. There is a lack of faith that brings about this kind of asking. But the next thing that happens, because of this lack of faith, we begin to doubt things. We begin to doubt that God can supply us what we need. We begin to doubt that God inherently is giving to us that which we need on a regular basis. Yet, if we look at our life, look at all the things that we get without thinking about. We get our food, we get our water, we get our air. We get so many things supplied by God automatically that we don't think about these things. But when we begin to doubt, then all of a sudden we become suspicious. We become suspicious about God, and we become suspicious about all the people around us. And when suspicion enters into us, then there is no peace. Then there is no contentment. Then there is a constant need that somehow doesn't seem to be fulfilled. And people who enter into this place begin to lash out at the rest of the world because they don't have what they need. So it's everybody's fault except their own. And in truth, they need to learn within themselves to find the truth within themselves. And it's only when that's found that we can begin to talk about reality, and we can begin to talk about God in an experiential manner. Now, only an insan kamil, a true man, can begin to understand reality. And what is the definition of an insan kamil? What is it that separates a true man from every other man? And this is something that we have to be very cognizant of, very aware of, and we have to think about it. A true man is no longer under the influence of his mind and no longer under the influence of his desires. Now imagine we walk through life without needs. We walk through life without being driven by mental images that we need to manifest into reality in order to find happiness. In other words, We look for our happiness within this manifest world. We look for our happiness in things. We look for our happiness in the treasures of the world. And until we can go beyond that state, we can never find truth, we can never find contentment, and we can never find peace. There are lots of stories about how man tries to satisfy the world or tries to satisfy himself with the world, but it's impossible. There's the story of Solomon feeding the fish, and one fish comes out, and Solomon's entire hoard of everything he's collected from food goes into this fish's mouth, and it's not enough. And Solomon's beginning to think, my God, this must be the biggest fish in all of creation. And the fish says he's one of 70,000 brothers and sisters, each of which is 70,000 times larger than the other. And then Gabriel comes with a drop of Allah's grace, and the fish is satisfied and goes back into the water. But man couldn't satisfy him, only God could satisfy him. And like that, in this world, man cannot satisfy us. Only God can satisfy us. But when we say man, we mean manifest man. We mean physical man. We mean elemental man. And just as elemental man cannot satisfy us, we can't satisfy ourselves from our elements, none of the elements can satisfy us, because there is no ultimate satisfaction within the elements. Yet our faculties that function within this world, the general tactic that man uses to get along in this world is to use his mind and his desire, as if they can find fulfillment, and they can't. So there's a space within us that is beyond us until we do away with the ability to look at things in the old way and create an ability to look at things in a new way. So as long as our mind looks at things and our mind conjures up ways to assist us, we are looking at things through an egocentric sense of self. We are looking at things through a self-motivated sense of self. Our life revolves around ourselves. Now, there are various ways to escape from this self-centered world. God is a power. He is a power without form. Yet, as long as we're dealing with our mind and desire, we only understand elemental things. We only understand the manifest things. We only understand things that can be weighed and measured and seen and experienced through our physical senses. We need to go beyond our physical senses. We need to incorporate within ourselves a new way of seeing and understanding things. One of the ways it's explained is that you have to become a secret. You have to get to the point where your mind doesn't see you, where your desire doesn't see you. If you can get to the point where your mind and desire don't see you, then you lose your attachment to them, and they lose their influence over you because you've lost your connection. Now, that's a straightforward explanation and doesn't seem to be easy to do. So what is it that you can do? You can do things that make you lose touch with yourself. Instead of trying to fulfill your needs, you try and fulfill the needs of others. And in fulfilling the needs of others, you lose this egocentric self and identifying with that egocentric self as all that there is. So when there's just the egocentric self and the need to satisfy that, there's a duality. There's you and everybody else. When you work on behalf of others, when you do things on behalf of others, you begin to lose your sense of self because others become important and you work for their benefit. And when you work for their benefit, you begin to see things differently. It no longer becomes, how do I satisfy me? It becomes, how do I satisfy God's creation? How do I help satisfy what Allah has placed into this world? To give up that sense of self is a very difficult thing to do. But in beginning to aid others, in beginning to surrender to others, you begin to give up that sense of self. One of the main factories or places for that to occur is in marriage. A wife surrenders to the husband and a husband surrenders to the wife. They each surrender to each other's needs and they give up part of their own needs in order to satisfy the other. And then it spreads from there. Can we give up ourselves for the sake of our acquaintances, for the sake of our friends, for the sake of truth? This is a way to discard the mind and desire. The mind and desire are constantly focused on the self. The nefs amara, the lower self, are constantly focused on the self. They are not focusing on the unity of existence. They don't understand the unity of existence. They don't care about the unity of existence. So if we want to understand that power that is God, if we want to understand that overwhelming effulgence and grace that is God, if we want to understand that overwhelming love and kindness that is God, we have to lose self-motive. We have to stop making everything about us. We have to get to the point where we don't make anything about us. It's always about others. And as it becomes about others, then we'll begin to understand the nature of the unity of creation. God has no hatred. God has no enmity. God has no enemies. God loves all of his creation, and he is constantly waiting for his creation to turn towards him and merge with him. But as long as you have the identity of yourself, you can't merge with him because something's in the way. What is it that's in the way? You're in the way. So you have to get out of the way. You have to somehow disappear. And this disappearing is what mysticism is about. We do all kinds of surrenders, but what we have to surrender mostly is our mind and our desire, which means we begin to function from a different part of ourselves. We begin to function from, instead of self-motive, we begin to function through love. We begin to function through God's qualities. So before a decision is made, mercy enters into the equation. Before a decision is made, justice enters into the equation. Before a decision is made, love and kindness enter into the equation. Before a decision is made, the qualities of God enter into the equation. And soon we become like the qualities of God. And God, in his mercy, has sent us exemplars of what that's like in a human being. They've sent us kind, gentle, gracious men who he sent from the light into the manifest world so that we could see them and see what it's like to be without self-motive, to see what it's like to be an egocentric being. My wife was in Sri Lanka with me, and she spent time alone with Bawa in his room. Nobody else was there. And she said to me that while she was talking to him, he became her. And it was like she was with herself. And that's what the Sheikh can do for you. He can be you while he's with you. And he can be everybody else while he's with everybody else. His love is for everyone. He has no enemies. His love generates to everyone who comes into his presence, whether he's known you for an instant or you've been with him for years. His love is not different towards you. His love accepts you and brings you into him, and he brings himself into you. We came here still knowing God. We lost touch with God while we were here and came under the influence of our parents and our religions. And the Sheikh comes to return us to our natural state. While the whole world is running around doing all of the things that the world does and that man does within the world, there are groups of people, small groups, who are very happy just to sit in front of the Sheikh and not do anything in the world, just to sense the resonance of truth in a man and understand that the love that resonates from a godly manifestation in this world is more important than anything that we can get from the worldly treasures. When God created us, he put all of the angels, or 5 major angels, within us: Gabriel, Israel, Israfel, Michael, and Rukael. These are the representations of the various elements. And these angels exist within us. Why did Allah put the angels within us? To elevate us. And is there any one of us that doesn't have these angels within us? No, we all have these angels within us. And if we came to know ourselves, we would come to know these angels. We would come to know the truth about who we are. But we seem to be more interested in knowing this world than in knowing who we are. The world is not Allah's greatest creation. Man is Allah's greatest creation. And each of us is that man. And what is it more important for us to know? The creation other than man, the less important creation, or the most important creation? And we have to understand the equality among all men, the equality among each and every being, that they have all been given the angels inside of them, and they have all been given the ability to know God. But we're busy talking about religions. We're busy talking about other things other than the elevated nature that man is. And we're busy separating ourselves from other men as if somehow we have gotten a priority in Allah's list of men, as if Allah did something like that. There are no priorities. Each of us has to go through the steps to come to know ourselves and to come to know Him. Each of us has to go through losing mind and desire, losing the egocentric self, losing the focus on ourselves, and be able to focus on truth and focus on equality and focus on unity. Our eternal passage is going to be towards unity. We are going to pass from material self to the light self. We are going to break through the limitations that this body has and enter into the unlimited world of light that is beyond comprehension. So don't try to imagine what you are truly like. Instead, become what you are truly like. And then it's experiential. It's no longer imaginary. But as long as we stay in the imagination of the mind, all we have is an imagination of truth as opposed to getting truth. So we need to stop imagining. We have to enter into a still, calm, quiet space where we leave everything in this world, and the only things that we retain are God's qualities. If we take all of ourself and throw it into God's qualities will burn everything but themselves, and then we can become truth. And as long as we are not truth, we are not real. We are our imagination. And what is our imagination? Watch your imagination. It can come up with anything. Imagination is like an insanity. It's like a fixation on a particular set of circumstances that you call real. And in truth, La ilaha illallah, all that's real is God. So if it's not mercy, if it's not compassion, if it's not justice, it's not real. If it's not love, if it's not kindness, if it's not generosity, if it's not gratefulness, it's not real. We have to understand what's real and what's not real. And we have to disavow from ourselves that which isn't real. And when we pray, we have to ask that God allows us to understand reality, understand what's real, and ask him to allow us to become what's real. And becoming what's real means to become man, God, God, man. Only God knows the secret that is man. And God is also a hidden secret within man. And when we give up the world, and when we give up our mind, and when we give up desire, we will know that reality. And may that day come quickly for each and every one of us when we become the truth. Ameen, ameen, ya Rabbil Alameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh.